Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Draft League team analysis. This time we're participating in Nova Blader's Battle League Academy, the NBBL Academy League for short. Nova's a good friend from a couple of other leagues that we've been in, and including our ongoing Draft League in the UNPL and the soon upcoming EBL, we are going to be part of 3 different draft leagues. And I like making team draft analysis just to recap everything. For Nova's league, we're starting off our team with, yes, this is a Tyranitar redemption arc. Last time we were in a draft league, the IBL, and we had Tyranitar, we didn't really do so well with it. This is one of my favorite Pokemon to use. I am a very dedicated sand user, as I study geology as an actual profession, and I just really love Godzilla. So this is literally the perfect Pokemon for me. With its sky-high HP, fantastic attack stat, great defense, great special defense, Sandstream for giving it an even further special defense, and offensive boosting options with things like Dragon Dance and tech moves like Taunt and Thunder Wave. This is really a Pokemon that can do so many different things all at the same time. It's going to be a question of what is it going to be bringing each and every week. Is it going to be Hyper Aggro? Is it going to be a knockoff tech set? Is it going to be, weird special offense? Because Tyranitar gets a whole lot of weird special attacks. Very sad it doesn't get Meteor Beam. All in all, this is one of my favorite Pokemon to use. It doesn't need to be a Vanguard attacker. It can be setup support. It can be Stealth Rocker. It can be knockoff tech. I just love this thing. Before we get on to the second member of the team, please don't forget to subscribe if you guys haven't done so already. Hope to do a lot of great draft battling with you guys. And we stream every single day, Shiny Hunting and Ogre Ousting on Sundays. And our secondary channel, Max Allo, we cover a lot of movie reviews, talking a lot about Godzilla, fittingly, most of the time, but we're branching out into other movies and we're going to be doing some game reviews. For our second member of the team, we went with Excadrill. Yes, this is the Sandcore Redemption arc. I am trying to do a bit of a kaiju theme again because we messed that up in the previous time, and now we're back better than ever and ready to rog, wreck, and rolla. Excadrill is a fantastic Sand Sweeper. With a 88 base speed doubled by Sand Rush, it really doesn't need a lot of speed investment to outpace most things. Really, you're only putting speed on this thing if you need to outrun something like an enemy Scarfer, or possibly a Photosynthesis speed user or Booster Energy speed user. Not really things that you're going to be encountering too much, so it can generally pump that into a little bit of bulk. Which actually is a little bit surprising for Excadrill because it gets a little bit of a bad rep as a glass cannon, which it kind of isn't. Its defenses are not the greatest, but your bulkiness is a combination of your defensiveness and your HP stat. And Excadrill has a fantastic 110 base HP, backing that up with 135 physical attack. It hits hard, and yes, it doesn't like taking hits, but really nothing does enjoy taking super effective stab hits, unless you're something like Ferrothorn or a Violite, Porygon 2, or Dusclops. So it can actually take a hit decently well, and it's got a lot of resistances. It's a great rapid spinner, so it can put on a lot of pressure with that. There's a whole lot of things it can do, and I really look forward to having this redemption arc for Excadrill go through. I picked up one of my Terra Captains early in Gyarados. This is one of my favorite Pokemon to battle with, period. Much like Tyranitar, Excadrill, and of course Gyarados itself, it has been one of my longest used Pokemon in VGC battling scenes, using it all the way back at the start of Sword and Shield with a Moxie Dynamax set. Now, Dynamax is no longer a thing, however, I still have a very strong love for Gyarados. Be it Moxie, be it Intimidate, be its offensive hyper-aggressive set with the Dragon Dance, or its Tech Thunder Wave Taunt set. It can do a whole lot of different things, a lot like Tyranitar. One can be offensive, one can be defensive, the two can switch off week in, week out. Got a great type in Flying and Water, which is why for my Terra types on, I went Flying, Ground, and Steel. Steel there to hit those very annoying rock types that try to do anything. Now with Intimidate, I generally don't need to worry about them too much. Ground is there for the very obvious electric types that want to come in. Steel also does well if I'm going up against any freeze dry users, as it flips the script on them and lets me bash in, well, ice types like they are ice with that hot knife. Its speed could be a little bit better, but again, it has Dragon Dance access, it has Intimidate, it can do a whole lot of different things. I can go Moxie, I can go Intimidate, and Intimidate is a very annoying ability, as I found out last season. All in all, one of my favorite Pokemon to use, and I look forward to having Gyarados do extremely well. Sadly, we couldn't get our Chaladon or Duraludon to get the full original quad going. Our fourth pick is an absolute crime this Pokemon was on the board at round 4. Sneasler. This is a Pokemon that gives me nightmares. 120 base speed, 130 physical attack, poison, fighting, stab. Yes, it's pretty frail. but you don't need to be bulky when you can brute force through things at an incredible pace. I don't have any terrains on my team to take advantage of something like Unburden with a terrain seed. However, a lot of people are going to underestimate that because that's kind of the standard for Sneasler, Unburden into a seed item. However, I can just run a standard Scarf with Poison Touch. I can run a different Unburden item, something like maybe Close Combat or even a Fling set. Or just go with a Scarf or Band set and go for Poison Touch for extra poison grease. It hits really hard. Yes, it gets hit pretty hard itself, but it's also a Pokemon I don't really enjoy fighting. It did rip through my Sand Core last time and was the bane of my existence last time. So I don't want to be facing that thing down. It was a tactical denial and a brute force aggression user that I want to use for my own purposes. Sadly, it doesn't get access to knockoff, but hey, he's got enough stuff and things going for it. It's gonna be fun. I'm a big fan of Rotom, and particularly my favorite actually is Rotom Heat. I know a lot of people are big fans of Rotom Wash, but I am very partial to the Toaster of Doom. Fantastic bulky stats, 107 across both defenses, and it only has 50 HP, but you're generally putting something like a healing item on it, like Leftovers or a Citrus Berry. Anyway, Levitate with Fire and Electric is fantastic. It only has to be afraid of Mold Breaker users, really, when it comes to Ground-type moves. Water types don't really like going up against it unless they're partially ground, because it's electric and it can zap them back. Rock types, yeah, not really the biggest fan of those, and especially Stealth Rocks. But there's really not much that a lot of things can do to Rotom Heat, and really Rotom as a whole. It's a great Will-O-Wisp user, got Pain Split, Volt Switch, it can be speedy and aggressive with something like a nasty plot set, or it can be slow, bulky, and tech with, once again, Thunder Wave, a very annoying move, or Will-O-Wisp. Can go for a bit of a nuke hit with, say, Eject Pack Overheat. And with a very critical resist to the very annoying Fairy type, I've got a couple of ideas for this thing. Also functions very well as a switch into Gyarados, provided it isn't dealing with rocks. Next is Mimikyu. I'd noticed we hadn't actually picked up a Fairy type yet, and I've always wanted to use Mimikyu on a team. It's one of my favorite Pokemon from Alola, and I really love its ability gimmick. Yes, it doesn't have the best offensive stats, only 90 physical attack, but it has fantastic speed at, well, 96, and a good special defense at 105. Physical Fairies generally tend to struggle, mostly due to play rough, unless you're something like Grimmsnarl or Iron Valiant, which has access to the fantastic Spirit Break. Sadly, Mimikyu doesn't really have that. I've always seen Mimikyu more traditionally as a Ghost type, with some Fairy options, since a lot of its best moves tend to be Ghost type. It gets Swords Dance, gets Shadow Sneak, but does also get some fun moves like Wood Hammer and Drain Punch and Leech Life. So I've got a couple of ideas involving this, and with its Disguise ability, it can take the first hit and, well, not go down. It can set up in the face of some big scary opponents, unless they have something like Mold Breaker going for them, which can make it a little bit easier to decide what opponents are going to be bringing to get around Mimikyu and Levitate Rotom. I really love this thing, look forward to using it, and I may not have a whole Fairy Dragon Steel Core running yet, but, well, we're getting there. There's a very good reason I mentioned the Fairy Dragon Steel Core, because it is an absolute crime if Sneasler was drafted in round 4 that we got a round 7 Latios. This is generally a round 1 pick in draft leagues, and it lasted until round 7 for us. What is there to say about Latios that really needs to be said? It is extremely fast at 110 base speed, very specially defensive for being as offensive as it is with 110 base special defense, and a stellar 130 special attack, with the cherry on top of being Luster Purge, which they buffed in Generation 9, a 95 base power special attack with a 50% chance of dropping their special defense 1 stage. Previously, it was a 75 base power move, so it really wasn't much better than regular Psychic. Now, it is more powerful than Psychic, and that secondary effect is just so good. It's not quite as aggressively destructive as Seed Flater, which is a double drop, but when Latios is blasting you and it's outspeeding you, this thing can tack on a Scarf or Specs and just destroy things. The only issue it can really have is if it's fighting a Dark or a Steel type, and it gets Aura Sphere to deal with those. It also gets access to Flip Turn for some pivoting. This rounds out our Fairy Dragon Steel Core incredibly well, and as a Psyshock user, it can hit special walls that are trying to wall it out. On top of all of Latios' great coverage moves, Thunderbolt, Energy Ball, Ice Beam, and even run some tech sets like Thunder Wave and Trick. It also gets access to Weather Ball, which I can kind of use in conjunction with my Sand team. A lot of fun things you can do with Latios. This thing is a menace in Draft League for a good number of reasons, and I'm very glad I don't need to face it, much like Sneasler. We've been leaning a bit hard on the offense this entire time. The closest thing to a defensive backbone we've got is defensive Gyarados and defensive Rotom. So I thought it's about time we put a little bit of meat on our bones with one of the most brick-wally Pokemon I can think of, Umbreon. This is probably one of the most infuriating Pokemon to face, and I have definitely voiced in the past I'm not the biggest fan of the EV clan. However, I have a begrudging respect for one and a fondness irrationally for another. The one I love is Glaceon. The one I have a begrudging respect for is Umbreon. This thing has served me incredibly well in previous leagues before, be it random battling, having to go do things like the Wild Area Challenge in the Penn State Pokemon Club, or in just random battles. It doesn't really do a whole lot of damage itself. Again, its physical attack and special attack are 65 and 60 respectively, but it makes up for that with titanic defenses and great HP. 130 special defense, 110 physical defense, and 95 HP. Slap a leftovers on it, max out its HP with your EVs, and just put the defensive wherever you need it. It can be physical wall, it can be a special wall, it just really doesn't take damage well. It really just doesn't take damage. However, it also gets access to Snarl and Foul Play, meaning it doesn't really matter that it doesn't have damage output itself, while also being one of the few Pokemon to regain Toxic access. Yeah, this thing is incredibly annoying, absolutely infuriating, and I always look forward to not fighting it on teams, and now I don't need to worry about this thing looming over my head, because I'm the one that's going to have to bring it, and the other side is going to need to be the one nightmaring about this thing. Also, it gets Yawn access, one of my favorite moves. For our second to last pick, I yoinked Cryogonal. This one is going to be an auxiliary rapid spinner, allowing for more aggressive options on the Excadrill when I decide to bring the Cryogonal. It also has access to Levitate, giving me another crucial ground immunity, which packs on well with Tyranitar and Excadrill itself, though it does need to worry about those fighting type moves that they are not big fans of. It also gets access to a move I have an irrational fondness for, Freeze Dry. Love using this to just slap some annoying bulky water types, especially those quad weak to it, and it does at the very least get some physical defense on its side. With 50 base physical defense, you can pack on that defense with a bold nature, or just defensive EVs, and it can take hits well enough to survive. You don't really need to invest in its special defense too high, because it's already a Titanic 135. This is going to be our special while to kind of complement the Umbreon, which can generally be allowed to go a bit more physically defensive. Though it does not really resolve the kind of overwhelming fighting weakness we kind of have with Tyranitar, Excadrill, and the Umbreon and now Cryogonal. Also gets access to a move called Chilling Water, which I very much like and enjoy and wish I could make work, so who knows, maybe we'll actually get to pull off some Chilling Water Cryogonal shenanigans this time. And for our final member of the team, we have our last Terra Captain, Lurantis. This is a long-awaited promise to one of my mods and viewers, Mudkip, where I have been saying that I will be picking Lurantis in a draft league. Now it is time. Terra Fighting, Fairy, and Grass. I wanted an auxiliary Fairy type on my team with a reliable Fairy move in Fairy Terra Blast, if I decide to go with Lurantis one of these weeks. Contrary, always a fantastic ability to invert stat changes. If I'm worried about, say, Sticky Webs coming sometime, well, I can just bring in Lurantis, and instead of getting a speed drop, I get a speed boost. Also, that's a defog, but mostly, the Terra Fighting superpower is kind of the big fun. Yes, Leaf Storm is not great on it, as it does primarily have physical moves. It doesn't have a whole lot of special attacks to capitalize on, but it does get at least Weather Ball, so I can use a Rock-type move on it and have that Leaf Storm juicing it up. It's a bit on the slow side, and unfortunately, because of Contra, I can't really use something like Trailblaze, and its offensive stats are a bit lower than what you would like from a pretty much a Vanguard attacker, as it can't really bulk hits out well. I still like the thing, and who knows, it might be able to psychologically pressure out some people from bringing in stuff like Parting Shot, or Snarl, or Intimidate by, do you really want Lurantis to get out of hand? And that rounds out our team for the New York metas in the NBBL Academy League. Definitely could have put a little bit better picks towards the end, but I went with the stuff I wanted to use because I loved the top-heavy loadout of the team. I went with a bit more of a top-heavy loadout here than I did in the UNPL Academy Season 5, where I went with a much more, general good picks. With this one, I just went, let's go for the Brick Force stuff at the top, and we'll fill in the stuff towards the bottom. But overall, I am very satisfied with this team, and I'm looking forward to seeing the damage it will do.